Ozzy Osbourne once said, "There's really no plausible medical reason why I should still be alive."
Ozzy Osbourne was always different, and the world knew it long before scientists ever touched his DNA. For decades, he shocked people with his energy.
DNA experts say Ozzy Osbourne is genetically programmed to survive a life of hard partying. Author Bill Sullivan writes that Osbourne is a genetic mutant predisposed to drug and alcohol addiction, allowing him to consume them in massive quantities. He says addiction has more to do with our DNA than our moral fiber.
But after his passing, one question spread across the world like wildfire. How did this man stay alive for so long? How did someone who spent years battling substances, injuries, and endless chaos continue performing with a force that felt almost superhuman? Years before he died, researchers had
Let's start with Ozzy Osbourne. You call him a genetic mutant.
That is right, and that is not meant to be offensive in any way. We're all mutants in some sense. Ozzy Osbourne is a remarkable specimen because he has survived an incredible amount of abuse that is related to drugs and alcohol. So what is it about his genome, the sequence of his genes, that made him resilient and come out of this relatively unscathed and still rocking at 70 years old?
The result became one of the most surprising discoveries in celebrity medical history. And now, with Ozzy gone, those results feel even more powerful. They don't just explain his survival, they tell the true story of a man whose body, brain, ancestry, and strange biological gifts created a life as unbelievable as...
It turns out that he has genes that make him six times more likely to become addicted to alcohol and drugs than the average person. And there are several reasons for this that have been revealed in the genetic sequence. The first of which is a very curious, never-before-seen mutation near an enzyme that resides in the liver and detoxifies alcohol.
Any known database. One researcher literally leaned back, eyes wide, and whispered, "This can't be real." Another ran the test again, convinced the system had glitched, but the same results returned every time. Ozzy Osbourne's DNA was behaving like nothing they had ever seen before. These weren't mild differences either. The sections of his genome connected to metabolism, nerve communication, and dopamine regulation.
So scientists believe that this genetic variation allows Ozzy's liver to process alcohol much more rapidly than the average person.
How do those genes then play a role in addiction and abuse, other than just the ability to metabolize it really well?
Good question. There's another significant element of this. Scientists, since the sequencing of Ozzy's genome, have sequenced many other people who struggle with alcohol and drugs. And one of the key things that comes out as a common denominator is that these individuals tend to have a hyperactive brain. This is due to a deficiency in a neurotransmitter that is designed to calm the brain down.
But the strangest discovery came next. When researchers mapped Ozzy's ancestry, they expected the typical European genetic profile. Instead, buried deep within his chromosomes, they found something shocking. A real fragment of Neanderthal DNA. Not uncommon in small amounts, but in Ozzy's case, clear, strong, and unmistakable.
So these individuals, you could say, are kind of self-medicating to quiet the storm in their brain, just so they can feel normal. But as we all know, this is a very slippery slope because it's a very addictive substance.
So for someone like Ozzy Osbourne, not only does he have the enzyme change that allows him to metabolize very quickly, does he also have this greater tendency towards addiction and self-medication?
I haven't seen the results published, so I don't know if he qualifies under that category, but it has certainly been seen in many other people who struggle with alcohol.
Strong immune responses and high pain tolerance. In modern humans, those ancient genes can influence metabolism, endurance, and even how we respond to stress and sickness. Suddenly, the idea that this man had survived years of extreme living didn't seem quite so impossible. Evolution had written a story inside him long before he ever picked up a microphone. But the story didn't end there. Once researchers dug deeper, they found clues that connected Ozzy's biology to the way he lived and the way he loved music. One of the most surprising findings was near the ADH4 gene, the part of the genome that helps break down alcohol. Ozzy had a rare variant of this gene, which changed how his liver processed certain substances. It didn't make him immune to harm, nothing truly can, but it meant that his metabolism worked differently, breaking things down faster than expected. His body still suffered, but it also fought back harder than the average person's. Another variant they found was linked to dopamine regulation, the system in the brain responsible for motivation, reward, excitement, and sometimes addiction. People with unusual dopamine patterns often crave stimulation, challenge, or intense emotional experiences. In some people, this leads to destructive behavior. In others, it creates creativity and passion. In Ozzy, experts believe it did both. The same wiring that made him chase extreme highs also fueled the electricity he brought to the stage, the energy, the emotion, the unpredictability that millions loved him for. One scientist put it simply, Ozzy's brain was wired for intensity, and that intensity became both his storm and his superpower.
The CLT-CL1 gene variant he carried, the one that affects how nerve cells communicate, added another layer to the mystery. Researchers believe it might influence coordination, timing, and even rhythm processing. Nothing in the genome screamed rock star, but something about the way his brain processed signals made people wonder whether his instincts for music had roots deeper than talent, maybe even deeper than culture or learning. Maybe they were biological. Maybe they came from those ancient fragments of DNA, echoes from a time when rhythm, sound, and survival were all connected. That idea fascinated scientists and fans alike. Could music be older than modern humans? And could Ozzy's unique genetic mix have made him feel those rhythms more powerfully than most? We may never know for sure, but the possibility alone was enough to spark new debates in genetics and anthropology. But perhaps the most important part of Ozzy's genome wasn't about addiction or metabolism or ancient ancestry. It was about resilience. When researchers compared his results to genetic data from people who lived unusually long lives or survived harsh illnesses, they noticed overlaps. Ozzy carried a small cluster of genetic advantages that worked like hidden armor. Genes that repaired cells faster, cleared toxins more efficiently, and protected delicate systems under high stress. Not perfectly, not magically, but noticeably. Enough to make scientists stop and ask, how many other people carry strange biological gifts without ever knowing? And does survival sometimes come down to tiny differences written in our DNA long before we're born? Still, the scientists were careful. They insisted that genes alone don't determine anyone's fate. Genetics can tilt the odds, but environment, choices, trauma, love, support, pain, and luck shape the rest. Ozzy's life, after all, was not defined by DNA. It was defined by battles, recovery, family, music, and a will to keep going even when everything around him was breaking apart. His DNA didn't write his destiny. It simply gave him tools, some helpful, some harmful, and he lived out the results in a way only he could. Even after the scientific papers were published, Ozzy remained both amused and curious about his genetic fame. "I'm not indestructible," he once said. "I just got lucky with the genes I ended up with." And yet, his genome forced the world to see human biology differently. It showed that evolution isn't finished, that each of us carries ancient codes, strange advantages, and hidden vulnerabilities. It reminded people that the human body is more mysterious than science can fully explain. And most of all, it revealed that survival is not just strength, it's adaptation, it's randomness, it's resilience mixed with chaos, written into the tiniest parts of us. And now, after Ozzy's passing, the science behind his survival feels even more powerful. It adds depth to his legacy. It reminds us that behind the icon, behind the legend, behind the performances that changed music forever, there was a human being whose body fought like hell, whose brain lit up like a storm, and whose ancestry carried stories older than civilization. Ozzy Osbourne was not a miracle. He was a mosaic, a blend of biology, pain, humor, talent, error, recovery, and ancient history. And that is what made him extraordinary. His DNA didn't excuse his struggles or explain away his choices, but it revealed the complexity of a man who spent his life walking the line between destruction and brilliance. A man whose survival became a scientific case study. A man whose ancestry told a story older than the stage he stood on. A man whose voice carried both chaos and beauty, written from the inside out. Ozzy's story teaches us something no textbook ever could. That human beings are full of hidden strengths, mysterious origins, and layers of history we rarely see. That survival is never simple, and that sometimes the greatest legends are also the greatest puzzles. If one person's DNA can reveal traces of ancient humans, explain unexpected resilience, and ignite scientific curiosity across the world, what might your own genome be hiding about your strength, your potential, or your past? Let me know your thoughts below. And thank you so much for watching.